Have you realized that when people have things like Down syndrome, have you heard of Down syndrome? They are not growing the way they talk like children. The person is 20 something years, but you look at the person, you are giving him the emotions of a child. Even when you know their age, you will struggle to respect them because of that fishy and look that is a product of poor development that person has sustained. That person can receive the insult of a child. That's why some of us that are daddies, we are receiving demonic assaults that spiritual children deserve. People that we think are spiritually mature, they are flogging them bad. For every growth of any plant that we see and that we know, you would observe two things: that there is always a ground and there is an atmosphere. People don't understand this thing. They just feel that growing is just default. I'll just grow because I have chosen to grow. There are two major factors that determine the pace of growth of any plant. Number one is the sunlight. Number two is the ground upon which the seed is planted. This is the same thing for spiritual development. That for a person to develop spiritually, he will need, number one, the atmosphere of the Spirit of God, and number two, the presence of a willing heart. If the power of God is available and people are not willing in heart, there's not going to be growth. This is why you will now go to a church that the power of God is ever present, the Spirit of God is always moving. You will just watch yourself move from one level of spirituality to the next. If you don't give the egg the right atmosphere, it decays, right? That's what happens to many people's spirit. When you are not giving the right atmosphere that can incubate the investments of God, what happens is that you begin to rot. But if we put you under an incubator, we don't have prayers. It is only in our eyes we see that you are just in an incubator. Gradually things are forming inside that egg. You might not be seeing it, but something is changing. That's how a lot of people, you just looked at them and they look very frail, they look like nothing. They give themselves over to the things that makes for spiritual development. Something is cooking inside. Feathers are forming, bones are forming, eyes are forming, nostrils are forming, beaks are formed. All of these things are forming. When it now grows and outdoors that environment, it is still under the influence of the incubator. It breaks the shell. And then that's when you will now know that the work of the incubator was not wasted. Anyone in the atmosphere of the presence grows. You just mature. All of a sudden, I want to encourage somebody here that nobody is seeing all your times of prayer. All those times where you are crying for more of God. You come for service, you came fasting. You know, Paul says that my little children of whom I travail in birth until Christ is formed. We will now find out that part of the purposes of travail, which is the ministry of prayer, engenders the intensity of the atmosphere of the Holy Ghost. That intense atmosphere determines the pace of people's growth. There are churches you will go to, you will grow 1 inch per 5 years. You won't grow like a man that every Sunday they are feeding him meat. It doesn't mean that they are bad places or something, but the intensity is different. There is an intensity. You came to Doxa 1 month, they are calling you pastor in your compound, because you came to a place there was an intense atmosphere of prayer. This is why in the journey of spiritual development you will select atmospheres. You will select who can be your roommate, because every human being comes with an atmosphere. When the kind of friends that you got, the people that are within your stock, your space, they are like-minded, pressing and pushing. What they are doing is not just to give you spiritual knowledge. They are helping you to maintain an atmosphere that helps for the maturation of the investments of God in you. So if I want to really grow, I will choose my friends. What am I doing is to create an intense, consistent atmosphere of the presence that matures. Colossians chapter 3 And in verse 16, he says, let the word of Christ dwell in you richly in all wisdom, teaching and admonishing one another. You see why I say you will select your friends. Teaching and admonishing one another in what? Psalms, hymns, and spiritual songs, singing with grace in your hearts unto the Lord, one another. Are you getting my point? So I will be singing spiritual songs to you. You will do this to one another. Is this one God's job? That Divine and Jeff will speak to one another. In doing this, he said they will be rich in the world. So I can build myself when I decide for the company that enriches my level in the world.